Film study isn't about proving how prepared you are as a coach. Understand that as a coach, you have to be the most comfortable person in your locker room. For players, it's about getting them to see the game more clearly. If film simplifies decision-making for your players, you're doing it right. If it overwhelms them, it's probably doing more harm than good.
Just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in.
Please believe it or not, I'm still a cream of the crop. I was just until the age of 18 on the charts. Wasn't even dreaming this far. Believe who you are. The sun doesn't even know it's a star.
Welcome back to Early Retirement. This is a solo episode today, and I want to talk about something that every high school coach knows matters, but I also think a lot of us struggle with, and that's film study. Because film study hasn't changed in its importance, but the way players consume information absolutely has. There was a time when you could put on a full game, sit in a dark room for 30 minutes, or an hour, or maybe an hour and a half, pause it every now and then, and players actually stayed locked in. But that's just not reality anymore. So today, I want to talk through how we actually use film, especially my last couple of seasons coaching high school basketball, without losing players, without overwhelming them, and without spending every free hour breaking down video. This isn't about being perfect. It's about being as efficient as possible. Here's the deal, the honest truth. Players don't struggle with film because they don't care. They struggle with film when they don't know what they're supposed to be watching for. What seems to be painfully obvious to us as coaches are not that for a lot of our players anymore. If you just roll out the TV and say, all right, let's watch, you probably lost a lot of them already. Seriously, I had guys who would rather run sprints than sit through some of our film sessions. And so we realized pretty quickly that long stretches of film, even if the content was good, just wasn't sticking. Attention drifted, teaching points got missed, and by the end, it felt like we were talking at them and not with them. So we had to rethink everything. Now, before we even open huddle and start the scouting process, I always started with one question in my mind. What do we actually need to know to compete in this game? Not what is everything that they do, not every set, not every coverage. Just what gives us the best chance to be successful? I have to tell you, that question alone allowed me to trim about 70% of the stuff out of film study that we used in the past. I was one who felt that I needed to know every intricate detail of all of the teams that we played against. And while that didn't really change for me, I realized that my players didn't need all of that information. So the conclusion that I came to was that if we could identify a couple of offensive actions, a couple of defensive tendencies, and a few personnel things that matter, we will be in really good shape. Now, before we get into the offensive side of film, I have to tell you the story. This episode is being brought to you by My Jersey Designs. If you're looking for digital replica jerseys, go to myjerseydesigns.com and they'll take care of you. My first year at Central Dauphin, I learned from coaching earlier at Camp Hill that long scouting reports didn't really work. And so we would have our scouting report down to 1-2 pages max with diagrams and things like that. But then when we made the playoffs, and we hadn't made the playoffs at Central Dauphin in a long time, and the players were excited and we were excited, and we had a lot of time to prepare, like 10 days. So I decided that it would be cool to put together a scouting report that we used to use in college. And the scouting report wound up being probably 6 pages, I think. And we gave it to the players, and instead of excitement, you could see that they were overwhelmed. And so while we had a lot of time to digest the report and actually get ready for the game, when we played in the game, without getting into too many details, there were adjustments that we were trying to make that we would normally be able to make. And I felt I could see the weight on their shoulders. I could see them trying to process everything that we taught them over the past 10 days that didn't allow them to be athletic. It didn't allow them to react. And they were thinking, and it was heavy, and we didn't play well. And even though we hosted a playoff game, that was the last game we played that year. And so from that point on, I always knew that those college level scouting reports were never going to be in our locker room again. And I will tell you that we continued to create them at times when we had the time, but that was just for the eyes of our coaches, not for our players. And so offensively, we're not trying to turn these guys into assistant coaches. We're asking things like, what do they really run when it matters? because understanding go-to sets and tendencies are really, really important. Another question we ask is, who are they trying to get shots for? Understanding personnel, to me, isn't that difficult at the high school level, even if you only get to watch a couple of games. Scorers, shooters, rebounders, they stick out. Even if they don't play well in the games that you watch, you kind of get a feel for it. But that's also coming from a guy who watched a lot of film, probably more than I needed to, but I always wanted to, at least for myself, feel as prepared as possible. And so that's what I did. I didn't make our players do it, but I definitely did. And lastly, we wanted to know, where do those shots come from? Is there a lot of penetrate kick? Or are they shooting a lot of corner threes? Those things. So instead of showing 10 different clips, we'll show them 2 or 3. It would tell the same story to our players. I found that helping our guys recognize patterns beat the volume of long film sessions every time. Players don't really remember film sessions that are long, but they do remember those sessions that were clear. Defensively, same thing. We're looking for tendencies, not tricks. What coverages do we see most? Strictly man? Zone? Do they mix it up? How aggressive are they on the ball? Do they pressure man on man, or are they trying to put pressure on the ball by sending traps? What are they comfortable giving up? If a team does press a lot, do they give up the middle? Do they give up opposite corner? Maybe the short corner is where they're vulnerable. Those are the things that we try to figure out and share with our players. But probably the most important thing to understand is, why do certain things work against those teams? When players understand the why, effort usually takes care of itself. Now, here's the part I think a lot of coaches can relate to. Breaking down film into short, digestible clips takes a crazy amount of time. And as the attention span of our players kept getting shorter and shorter, the demand for cleaner film kept increasing. One season, Coach Peters, our assistant coach, he worked third shift at his job. And so he would be cranking out clips in the middle of the night while we were all asleep. And it was great for that time, but it wasn't sustainable. We got to a point where doing the things manually just wasn't realistic for us anymore. So we made the decision to pay for a service that had someone clip out offensive and defensive possessions, as well as tendencies. If anyone out there has the extra funds for it, leave a comment, leave a message on one of our social media platforms. But I will tell you that for us, it was money well spent. But again, that's not a requirement, and it's not for everybody. But for us, it was a game changer. It didn't make us smarter, but it did give us our time back. And that time went into teaching, it went into practice planning, and it went into building player relationships. We also used a software called Fast Model, and that gave players access to scouting reports digitally, where we would embed clips directly into the scouting report. I believe they partner with Huddle now, so I'm sure now it is way too expensive to use. But once upon a time, it didn't even cost us $100, and it helped us to reach our players where they were. So now, instead of one long film session, players could review film on their own time, they could rewatch specific clips, and they could see the diagrams and video together. It was really cool because if a certain team ran certain sets and we knew the set call, we would have the set call and they could just click on that link and see video examples of those particular sets. But really, the biggest takeaway isn't the software. It's this. Film should be easy to access and hard to misunderstand. If players need you standing there explaining everything for you to make it make sense, it's probably too much. If you don't have paid services or advanced tools, or just don't want to spend the ridiculous amounts of money that we spent on this stuff the last couple of seasons, here's what I focus on. First thing, show less film. Give one clear focus per session. Try to keep the session around 10 minutes if possible, and then immediately connect the film to what you're doing on the floor. For us, we had a flat screen television on a cart and that we would roll out into the gym during practice. And the cool thing is, if it was the day before a game and we were doing a scout, we would pull up the clip, show it. If it was a set that we really wanted to not get beat on, we would show it. We would have a team dummy it. We would defend it. And then we'll go back to the TV screen, show something else that's important, go back on the court, dummy it, defend it, and then go back. And we would do that a few times, a couple of offensive things. Defensively, if they were a trapping team, we would work through our press break. We would do things like that. And it made the whole experience of doing film a lot more palatable for our players. And it was a lot easier for them to be able to play with anticipation as opposed to thinking when they got on the court. Ultimately, film study isn't about proving how prepared you are as a coach. Understand that as a coach, you have to be the most comfortable person in your locker room. The players don't need to know how smart you are. You just need to make sure you are as prepared as you need to be. For players, it's about getting them to see the game more clearly. If film simplifies decision-making for your players, you're doing it right. If it overwhelms them, it's probably doing more harm than good. I can tell you, like I told you earlier, I've seen it firsthand. When your players are overwhelmed, they cannot react, they cannot play fast, they cannot do the things that they need to do to be successful because they're overthinking. And that's the one thing that you want to eliminate as quickly as possible. If you've gotten this far, please hit the like button so that we know that you appreciated this episode. Also, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and to the platform that you are receiving this podcast. We very much appreciate it. Thank you for listening to Early Retirement. If this episode resonated with you, pass it along to another coach who's trying to make film work in today's game. I'll talk to you next time.